Welcome to the podcast. My name is David Shanhun, and these are the chats I wish I could have had with someone as I've created life as a full-time musician. If you're on that road and you need a friend, or you need to hear the same stories and struggles that you're going through from another human's mouth, you're in the right place. Connect with me at davidshanhun.com and let's move you into that space where you're really thriving and sharing your gifts with the world. Let's go. Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to this Christmas edition of the podcast. I'm probably going to take the Santa hat off that I'm wearing because it is summer and it is quite warm. But I feel like this is an appropriate time for this topic to discuss juggling family life, friendship, schedules, being a muso, how that all interacts. I don't by any stretch of the imagination claim to have that all figured out and perfected, and I'm not going to be giving you any magic formulas or framework in this episode on it, because I don't think I have that. But what I can share is experiences I've gone through, ways that I've looked at it, and my musings on this topic, in the hope that you will relate, and maybe through listening to this chat and contemplating my perspectives, it might give you something that you can look at your own choices and how you're managing that with everything that you have going on in your life, and make choices that work, or maybe work better for you. Who knows? We shall see. But I really wanted to start this off with a couple of little stories that I think are funny. And one was when I was dating. I remember a girl saying, like, Friday night, let's go out. And I'm kind of like, cool. This is during the week. This, obviously, it's a couple of days away. I already have gig booked for Friday. And her response was kind of like, oh, not this again. It's like, interesting. Where if someone doesn't understand, if they are not around people that run their own business or that have a different schedule, a lot of people haven't been exposed to alternative ways of living your life rather than a 9-to-5 job. Needless to say, that did not work out in terms of relationship stuff, but sometimes there's a lot of education and conversations you have to have of relating, hey, this is how my business and how my life works. Gig opportunities are much more plentiful on a Friday night. It may mean we don't get to hang out, or we miss out on various events. But we'll talk about this more. There's so many things I really want to say all at once, and I'll do my best for this episode not to go on too many tangents and try and keep things rolling. But really, it's one of those things where I think you have to have some good discussions. And you also just have to be open about what works. Every relationship and dynamic is going to be different. So what works for you may not work for me. It may mean that genuinely, and maybe this is challenging as well, but it might mean that you need to take a Friday or a weekend off every month and figure out and navigate how to build around that. But a lot of those are discussions, and I think the greatest grace is always being able to connect with someone and have someone that's understanding of what you do and what your own goals and desires with it are. But part of that as well is really navigating and being able to share that, because I think a lot of times for myself, I've gotten frustrated, and again, I can only really share from my experience, but I've gotten frustrated with other people because they see that I essentially run my own schedule. I can not book gigs or shows or tours or whatever at any point. But there's also, I think, this illusion that you can just stop and not perform, not work, and do that sort of thing. Like, you can take that weekend off. I'm like, yep, I can. But you're asking me to take that weekend off, and I'd love to hang with you. But also, this friend has asked me to take that Friday off. There's a barbecue happening next Saturday, and it's so, there's all these different demands, and because a lot of events, family get-togethers, gatherings are happening at the times that we're playing, it can feel like a lot of pressure. And so I laugh, going back to this dating relationship. For me, I was kind of like, well, let's do a long lunch on Wednesday, and and we'll take the afternoon, we'll just hang out. And it's like, don't be silly, I've got work. And I have to laugh at it now, because I'm like, it seems so obvious, like, don't be silly, it's a Wednesday afternoon, I've got work. To us as working musicians, if you're gigging and you're used to playing nights and weekends and events, then the same response is really like, of course, don't be silly, I'm working. Where I think if you've explained that well and had those chats, like, then I think that comes across. You're like, hey, I totally could, but I'm essentially applying for leave with myself, if that makes sense. And just kind of diving into this, one of the things that's come up for me with family at different times is exactly that, where it's like, hey, we'd like to do this thing, could you take that weekend off? And I found myself a lot of times going, not that it's super often, but a lot of times I did, and then kind of resented them and was frustrated about the whole thing. That's on me for not communicating it. And looking back, the thing that has power is owning the choice. So, hey, I did that. Also for me, anytime I do something, I look at it as feedback. You make a choice, you get feedback. So for me, took the time off, hang out with family, wasn't fully present with them, because I was sort of busy resenting them, and was also frustrated about kind of not gigging, because I had, I guess, particular goals at that point, in terms of income and performing and what I was up to. So, interesting dynamic. Looking back at that, I think the better thing would have been to have a chat and actually say, hey, look, where I'm at the moment, I'm actually really focused on whether it's performing, bringing in an income, the impact of that, and saying, hey, look, let's... So the tangent's totally happening. The dynamic that's interesting is, if I take time off, there's no holiday pay, there's no sick leave, there's none of that, right? So I'm in charge of managing that and putting money aside to take time out. That's the nature of running your own business. There's not those sort of systems that a lot of people are used to in place. You have to set them up for yourself, and I recommend doing that, putting some money aside that is essentially your holiday pay to take a break. But there's two things on this part. Is one, if it's a weekend event, the chances are the majority of people are free on the weekend. You're going to be the one that's unfortunately not. So in terms of turning it around, if it's a bigger event or a bigger gathering involving more people, it's tough to say, hey, look, why don't you actually take some leave? You'll still get paid. You can receive holiday pay. And we do it on this these other dates, these other days, juggle things. I think there's a lot of room for discussion around that to be had. You may not come out with a great resolution, but there's just some different dynamics involved. And on a smaller scale, that can work really well, is you actually chat about, hey, look, this is the impact on me of doing that. I totally can. Equally, and this is probably the thing that people don't like, where sometimes I'm blunt, is I'm like, equally, we could take Monday, Tuesday, which you totally can get off. People say, and people are more resistant to this. They think it's somehow different. No, if I take time off, it's exactly the same as you taking time off. Yeah, but I have to ask my boss, and it's like, yeah, I don't have to ask my boss, but we have a different set of things that are both have some level of uncomfort. So I'm just blunt about it. I'm like, well, I could take time off, or you could take time off. Anyway, I hope this is a useful chat to some of you. I feel like sometimes on these topics, it's like there's certain amounts of frustration that come through at different points where I'm like, I don't know if it's frustration or passion at different points where I'm like, man, I wish I could explain this sometimes in a way that maybe people would understand a little bit better, where it's like, I feel we tend to get asked as musicians, because of our schedule, because of working nights and weekends, we're usually the one that is sort of like the odd one out. So like, hey, everyone else can make this particular Saturday. Can't you just do this? You're like, really powerful 2-letter word. Like, no. Also, it is definitely too hot for the Santa hat. So, some musings on juggling this. Definitely communication is so valuable, but I want to share something else that I think is a really great topic to open up. And it's something that came up for me this year. Is I'd committed to play at someone's event, and typically if I make a commitment, I just don't break it. I don't tend to go, oh, this is more important, less important, etc. It's like, okay, I booked in this gig, so I've booked it in. Great, I'll turn up and do that gig. And a friend's event came up, and I'd made a commitment to, and I wanted to go. I'd made a commitment to play at someone's event, and the reason I'm sharing this is purely because I missed my friend's birthday. I missed that event whilst being the entertainer for someone else's event. And reflecting back on it, I'm annoyed at myself for that. I'm disappointed. And thinking about it for this podcast to chat and just share, I think what comes up is that either way, I was going to let someone down. There was not a good way really around that. The dates and timings just clashed outright. But I'm kind of like, I'm left with, man, I kind of let my friend down and missed hanging out with people I care about and want to party with. And it's an interesting one in those scenarios where looking at that, I feel like that's changed for me, where I would go back and make an exception and say, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I know we booked this in. Something important to me has come up. And making that time and putting the value on that friendship, relationship, partnership, family, whatever it is, there's nothing that replaces that. you can't necessarily make up some of those things. And if you've ever seen the videos on social media where you see like a kid performing on stage and you see them look around and you see the moment that they see their parents or their family in the audience and their face just lights up and they're like, oh my gosh, this person came through for me, this person showed up. There's a real there's a sadness for me that at various times, because of really wanting to honour feeling a bit stuck, I've made a commitment, I'm playing, I've missed all sorts of different events, and sometimes they just would have been fun to hang out. Sometimes it's like it was really something important to someone important to me, and yeah, it's tough. I don't know that there's an ideal scenario solution, but I also think that, and I talked about this in one of the previous podcasts, if I were to break or have to change or say, look, sorry, I can't, I'm no longer going to go through with this commitment, something important to me has come up, I would totally help you out. I would totally find someone. You guys will have a great night. I will replace myself with someone epic to entertain, perform, and play for you. So what's shifting for me in that side of things is realizing that actually I can cancel some of those things. I can change it. I can apologize and make good as best I can for that person. But it's important to me to share and spend some of those personal moments and times as well. And it means a lot to those people in your life that you're close to. It's, you know, maybe more so when they know that actually you've given up and juggled and shifted things around to be there present with them. So I hope this this chat and just me sharing my thoughts on the topic is of value to you all. I don't know that there's a perfect or right way to go about any of this sort of stuff, but I hope as well that maybe some of this opens up some discussions for you all with partners, friends, families, maybe some different ideas or ways you can just chat and explain yourself and the situation you're in, or maybe send them this podcast, who knows, to be like, here's how this guy feels when you ask him to cancel shows or book out times, and maybe you're not willing to do the same equally when it's on a standard weekday, and they can get angry at me for saying that, but literally it's like, just because we don't fit into the typical time schedule that a lot of people work, it's not any less fair or unfair to always have it be us that is asked to adjust or take time out. So who knows? I hope you have a fantastic Christmas, and as you're watching this, if you're watching it when it just came out, and I hope you find time, whatever your schedule is, to let the people in your life that are important to you know that they are, by scheduling some time to hang out with them, specifically when there's not other things on. And it might have to be down the track, it might be an unusual combination. Hopefully it opens up discussions that between you can figure out what's important. Is it important that we have certain times? Do we need like quality time? Do we need to actually, just for our general social health and well-being, need to go and hang out at a friend's barbecue every now and then, which probably means maybe killing a gig here and there? But the one thing actually I wanted to include in this is, I do think anytime you ditch a gig if you're concerned about the income side of things, I know sometimes it can be stressful, or it can appear that way. It can very much feel that way. I think there's a natural flow that if you cancel a bunch of things and that stresses you out financially, you will naturally then be more alert, attentive, and aware to book more things later. So I don't think there's a huge missing on that side, provided it's not every week, right? You just like cancel everything. David said it'll be fine, it'll work out. But I think there's how we're wired a little bit is when we balance, if we get off balance one way, we're naturally aiming to head back the other way. So I think you'll navigate your own path, and if you find that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just taking too much time all over the show now to hang out with people, it's amazing, but I want to veer back the other way, you'll do your own little dance, hopefully, of all those bits and pieces. So moderate rambling, moderate tangents for today, but I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. Much love from me. We'll finish with the Santa hat back on just because it's fun, and it has a tassel that we can play with. But I appreciate you all. I hope this has been of value, and I wish you much love and many success and happiness and joys for the year ahead. See you later.